Welcome back to Caffeine Confessionals. 15 years ago, Wes Bergmann and Jodi Weatherton made history by winning the Duel 1. Together, they became the first two individual challenge champions ever. Since then, we've had 12 more additional wins, and in this video, we are going to rank all 14 individual challenge championships from least impressive to most impressive. What is crucial to note when watching the video is that some of these wins are going to be called least impressive, and that's only in comparison to the other individual winners. To be able to win an individual season is a massive achievement. You need to be good in so many different facets of the game, and if you can do it, you're basically a legend. Let's get into the rankings. Kicking us off at 14th place, we have Cara Sorbello winning the Challenge Vendettas. Cara is one of the best females to ever play the game. She's appeared in the most finals of any female competitor ever, has won the most eliminations of any female competitor. Why is she ranked 14th when she was the first genderless winner in challenge history? Well, it's because her overall season was just not that impressive. On Vendettas, Cara only made her way into one Troika the entire season, and that was in the final daily challenge after she had already been qualified for the final. She did not have to worry about politics either, as the men who controlled the game assumed they would be running the finals in partners similar to the previous two seasons, Invasion and Dirty 30, and because they knew Cara was a strong female who could run a final, they kept her in the game in case they got partnered with her. Ultimately, this choice backfired huge on the men in the game, as Cara went on to put up her best performance in the final, killing it day one physically and then solving the puzzle in the end, becoming the winner of the Challenge Vendettas and showing that you don't always need to have the best overall season, you just need to win when it matters most, but when comparing it to these other individual wins, she comes in 14th. In 13th place, we have CT winning Invasion of the Champions. While the story of him coming back to play for the first time since DM's death as a new father was a heartwarming story, the actual performance by CT is one of his lesser seasons. It is not necessarily his fault, as the format of Invasion of the Champions did not really allow him to stand out in the daily challenges. He didn't truly have to perform until his elimination with Duel, where he put up an excellent performance and not so fast, somewhat breaking the game. And then in the final itself, he only had to beat Corey and Nelson. Corey, who put up one of the worst final performances ever, and Nelson, while he was in great shape and had a lot of heart, can't swim and can't do puzzles and had never seen a final before. The fact he could only beat Nelson by 2 minutes with all of Nelson's flaws makes this a less impressive win. However, karma works in mysterious ways, and CT's had so many impressive seasons where he didn't get the win that I'm okay with him winning Invasion. In 12th place, we have Jordan Wiseley winning the Challenge Dirty 30, and it speaks volumes to the rest of the players on this list that he comes in 12th when Jordan put up one of the best, if not the best, finals performance ever. To kick off his final, Jordan fractured his leg in a freak accident while skydiving, but proceeded to completely outrun and outpace CT and Derek, two men with multiple challenge championships under their belts, by a massive margin. The challenge editors even tried their hardest to make the final look close, but anyone with eyes could tell you that Jordan won that final by at least an hour with a fractured leg against two legends. Simply incredible. So why is Jordan in 12th place? It's pretty simple. His social game was bad. He got on the wrong side of a lot of people. When it came to the daily challenges, he was in the double cross for a majority of the season, and had Nelson not gotten DQ'd and there not been two spots available to get back in the game via redemption, he doesn't come back into the game. His elimination win against Ammo as well was less than stellar. Great season though, great final performance, all-time great player. In 11th place, we have Ashley Mitchell winning the Challenge Invasion, and similar to a lot of the other players at the bottom of this list, she did not shine in the daily challenges, but the reason she's above them is because Ashley put up a masterful political game. At the onset of Invasion, Ashley and her best friend Amanda saw that Corey, Tony, Jenna, and Kayla had created a small power alliance, and so they decided, hey, let's take all the people on the outside of that group and create a big alliance to take on that small group and just use the numbers against them. Ashley used people like Anika, Latoya, Marie, and Sylvia as numbers, as meat shields to keep them from elimination and to potentially take out the stronger players. That alliance would eventually evolve into the Lavender Ladies, including herself, Amanda, Shane, and Sylvia. Along with that, Ashley made the smart choice of linking herself and Amanda to another male in the game as a loyal ride or die vote and as a partner in daily challenges. She politicked her way into having Hunter on her side, and he was a big physical force who could complement her mental game. Similar to Cara Maria on Vendettas, Ashley's daily challenge performances did not matter because in the final itself, she killed it. She put up her best performance all season, and she beat a physically strong Nicole Zenyatta and a former champion in Camila. You could make the argument that Ashley should be ranked even higher based on the overall strength of this female cast. Then again, because she did not have to face any of the champions in elimination, many people would argue her win isn't as good as if a champion won. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but we're going to be objective for the case of this argument. In 10th place, we have Johnny Bananas winning Total Madness, and on the surface, you might not think of it as a dominant win, but he would go on to make it into 6 out of 14 tribunals. That means Bananas was in power for almost 50% of the game. His alliance with Wes was also crucial, as together they pulled off an ultimate blindside, throwing Jordan into a pole wrestle against Fessy, and by doing so, they eliminated their biggest threat in the game. Bananas going on to eliminate Wes also adds to his resume massively, as at that point in the game, Wes had been winning the hardest daily challenges and was his biggest threat at that point in time in the final. Other accolades for Bananas include politically taking out top female players in Dee Nguyen and Ashley Mitchell, and then physically eliminating Rogan himself in the final. If you want to rank Bananas lower, that's fine, because you can make the argument that this cast is pretty weak on the male side. His three biggest threats were CT, Wes, and Jordan. CT had the dad bod, Wes is definitely not in his prime, and Jordan was coming off a three-peat, so it's not like he was too hungry to win. In 9th place, we have Rachel Robinson winning the Duel 2. She put up a physically dominant performance, winning 4 out of 9 daily challenges, was never called out for elimination because nobody wanted to face her in elimination, and she even crossed the finish line of the final itself before any of the men. So why is Rachel not ranked higher? It's simple, she's a victim of the cast she was on. Many of the top females of that generation did not compete on this season. No Jodi, no Evelyn, no Susie, no Kellyanne, no Coral, no Jillian, and because of that, it's hard to rank this win as being better than some of the other top female or male wins. I will note though that if Rachel Robinson came back to the challenge right now in her 40s, she would still be one of the top players in the game. In 8th place, we have Evan Starkman winning the Duel 2. He wins 2 out of 9 daily challenges and a whopping 3 eliminations. And I know you hear 3 eliminations and you think on paper, maybe he should be ranked higher, especially because he had to beat people like Landon, Mark, and Brad. The problem is, that's all he had to beat when CT got DQ'd. The gap between those 4 men and the next best guy was massive, and even then, Evan had to cheat in his elimination against Nehemiah. At the end of the day, Evan's win is very impressive, but I can't help feeling that Landon deserved it more for physically dominating the season, or Mark Long deserved it more for physically killing it and then also dominating socially. In 7th place, we have Wes Bergmann becoming the first male individual challenge champion on the Duel 1, and you could rank this way higher or way lower. This is one that is a little bit more subjective than the other performances, and we're going to get into it right now. Now, the visual of Wes becoming the first individual male champion in the purest, most competitive format, the Duel, would make you think he would be in the top 3 easily, but we got to talk about the negatives. He only won 2 daily challenges out of 14. Wes had a lot of luck on his side as well. He did not have to face either Evan or CT in the final, and those 2 men were easily the best players all season as they were dominating the daily challenges. Add in, during the final itself, there was a penalty shootout that gave one player a time advantage. Wes had played soccer for over 10 years of his life, while Brad had never played soccer before. He was at a distinct advantage, and had Wes not gotten this penalty shootout advantage, he doesn't win the final. With the negatives out of the way, let's move into the positives. Even though Wes only won 2 daily challenges all season, they were for the final 2 male immunity challenges, which means when the game mattered most, when the stakes were at their highest, he performed and he delivered. On the political side, Wes understood he was in the minority for most of the game, so he created an alliance with Beth, Svetlana, Anissa, and Nehemiah where they would call each other out in the dual order. Wes also cut a huge political and strategic deal with Evan, where if Wes called out Derek and Brad for elimination, Evan would call out CT. While Brad and Derek are strong competitors, the deal is perfect because Evan and CT were dominating and Wes got them to go against one another. It must also be mentioned, Wes's pole wrestle win against Derek is legendary and iconic and is still talked about to this day as one of the great eliminations ever. Fun fact, both players at that point in time were tied for the most elimination wins ever. That is such a cool moment in history and is likely to never happen again. The last argument as to why Wes deserves this ranking and maybe even higher is that he competed against a stacked cast and won. 9 out of the 10 men on this season became challenge champions. 7 out of 10 became multi-time challenge champions, and 4 of them went on to become 3 or more time challenge champions. Wes beat all of them. In 6th place, I begrudgingly put Camila Nakagawa winning the Challenge Dirty 30. Camila is a terrible person. Her actions on this season are toxic, racist, and awful. Subjectively, I would rank this dead last. I would put this worse than seasons where people are the first boot, but objectively, it is a physically impressive season. Despite being a terrible person, Camila won 5 out of 9 daily challenges, won 2 eliminations pretty decisively. She absolutely torched both Kayla and Jenna in the final purge to end the season, eliminating both of them, and then in the final, she beat Tori and Cara, 2 strong females, by a pretty significant margin. Personally, I think she should have been kicked out of the game after her racist tirade towards Leroy, but that did not happen. She ranked 6th. Whatever, let's move on. In 5th place, we have Jodi Weatherton winning the Duel 1, and Jodi put up a dominant performance. There were 7 female immunity daily challenges on the Duel 1, and Jodi won 5 of them. That means she was safe for 72% of the game. That is a ridiculous stat. For almost 3/4 of the game, you could not even take a shot at Jodi, and why would you want to? Because if you go into elimination with her, you're bound to lose. While you could look at the raw stats and say that Jodi's performance is the most dominant in challenge history, the sad truth is the competition she went against was B- players. It's even worse than what Rachel faced on the Duel 2. Jodi even admitted during the Duel final that puzzles and mental competitions are not a strong suit of hers, but because there was such a big athletic gap between Jodi and the next best female, it never mattered. Nobody posed an actual threat. Jodi was an absolute beast, and if they do a Challenge All-Star Season 2, I really hope she shows up. In 4th place, we might have a controversial pick here, and it is Jenny West winning Total Madness. I say controversial as Camila and Jodi, players I just ranked lower than Jenny, had immunity for over 50% of the game, whereas Jenny only won 4 out of 14 daily challenges. Going to go into defense mode for Jenny a bit here, she still won the most daily challenges of any female. The 2 daily challenges most similar to a final, she destroyed her competition. And once you get a red school in Total Madness, winning daily challenges is no longer incentivized. What separates Jenny from the women that preceded her on this list is that the Total Madness female cast is stacked. Looking at the female cast, Jennifer Lee was the only layup, and she was gone after 2 episodes. On this cast, you had Ashley Mitchell, a 2-time challenge champion, Dee Nguyen, who was coming off a win and was in even better shape than the season she had just won. Tori Deal was either the best or the second best girl on the previous season, War of the Worlds 2. There was Casey Clark, who had just won Big Brother 20 and is a semi-professional athlete. You got Maddie Lynn Brew, who even though she didn't live up to the hype, makes the final of most seasons because she's 6 feet tall and nobody wants to see that in a headbanger. I mean, the Holy Trinity, Nany, Kayla, and Jenna were middle of the road players on this cast. And that's crazy because Nany was once a top player. Jenna went to 3 straight finals. Kayla was a top player during Dirty 30 and Vendettas. Nobody thought they were threats to win on this season. And it's not just that Jenny came out on top of this stacked female cast, it's the fact that the females on the cast themselves knew they couldn't beat Jenny in a final, still let her get there, and then she clobbered them. Ashley Mitchell said after her elimination that Jenny's gonna outrun the men in the final, and Jenny did that. The cherry on top was Jenny eliminating Dee in a hall brawl. Dee was easily the second best player that season, and to be able to take out another top dog in a physical elimination by yourself, that's huge. In 3rd place, we have Johnny Bananas winning the Challenge Free Agents, and historically, a lot of people will point out that Johnny was sometimes carried to wins by his friends. He's had a lot of luck. Free Agents, that is not the case. He actually had to earn this win. I think he deserves this 3rd place spot, and let's get into the stats. He won 5 out of 10 daily challenges, so he was safe for 50% of the game. Most importantly, he won the final daily challenge of the season, which guaranteed that he would not be going into elimination against either a CT or a Leroy. And when he didn't have that automatic safety, he had to fight for his life in the game. He won 3 different types of eliminations. He won a headbanger, he won a climbing elimination, he won a puzzle elimination. He had to be good across the board, and it wasn't like he was beating cupcake players like on Rivals 3. That Free Agents male cast is pretty damn stacked. You had players like CT, Leroy, Zach, Frank, Jordan, all in their athletic primes, and then you had underrated gems like Ahada and Johnny Riley. Dustin and Chet were 2nd and 3rd place on their previous seasons, and they were the first 2 boots. Even Preston, who had been a layup on most seasons, was actually killing all the daily challenges. As I mentioned with Jenny, anytime you can take out your biggest threat in the elimination arena yourself, that elevates your resume. And Bananas took out his two biggest threats, Jordan and CT. His final performance is super underrated as well. Everyone remembers this final for Zach dying on the mountain, but I don't think it gets mentioned enough that during all the partner portions, every single female had their best portion when partnered with Johnny. To summarize, 3 elimination wins, 2 of them against elite competitors, good daily challenge stats, big clutch wins, and a good finals performance while having a target on his back the entire game against a strong male cast. While I'm not a fan of Bananas, this is an undeniably strong performance and win. In second place, I have Laurel Stucky winning the Challenge Free Agents, and there's no real way to describe it other than it being a quintessential Laurel performance. She won 4 out of 10 daily challenges, but that doesn't really tell the full story since she didn't get to compete often as an individual or as a pair. In the 4 physical daily challenges that were done in pairs, she won 2 of them. Of the 1 daily challenge that was individual and physical, she won that as well. Looking at Laurel's competition, while I do think the Free Agents cast has a lot of layups on the female side, the top half is ridiculously strong. You got Camila, Teresa, Cara, who are all hitting their strides as competitors at this point. Anissa was still in good shape. Nani was in great shape. I believe the Free Agents versions of Teresa and Cara Maria are better than any female that either Jodi or Rachel went up against in their wins. That transitions me into my next point, and what really impresses me about Laurel's game is the fact that she eliminated all her biggest threats one by one. She did not leave a stone unturned. Laurel set records in the elimination arena. She became one of only 6 players to win 4 eliminations in a season and is the only to do so in an individual format. To top it off, in the process, she took out her biggest threat before the final in Teresa, Anissa, and Cara Maria. Laurel put up a dominant performance even in spite of terrible luck throughout the season. Laurel pulled the kill card a total of 3 times. The first time, she had to face Anissa in a headbanger, and that's Anissa's forte. She beat her decisively 2-0. The third time she pulled the kill card, she had to face Teresa in a puzzle pyramid, and Teresa has a photographic memory. If Teresa was ever going to beat Laurel in anything, it was a puzzle. Of course, Laurel beat her there. In the actual final, people try to say that Laurel's win was not impressive because Nani was within 10 minutes of winning. Laurel had Zach in the portion where he died. There was a whole 20-minute difference between them in that one portion. If you swap their partners for that portion, you subtract 20 minutes from Laurel's time, add 20 minutes to Nani's time, and now we're talking about one of the biggest blowouts in final history. When a player as dominant as Laurel exists, you kind of hope that she slips up somewhere to show that she is human. Laurel got thrown a plethora of bad luck, banana peels all around her feet, and she never slipped up. She got the win, she set records, and she deserves this number 2 spot. And before we jump into first place, let's review the list. In 14th place, we have Cara Maria winning the Challenge Vendettas. 13th place, CT winning Invasion. 12th place, Jordan Wiseley winning Dirty 30. 11th place, Ashley Mitchell winning Invasion of the Champions. 10th place, Johnny Bananas winning Total Madness. 9th place, Rachel Robinson winning the Duel 2. 8th place, Evan Starkman winning the Duel 2. 7th place, Wes Bergmann winning the Duel 1. 6th place, Camila winning Dirty 30. 5th place, Jodi Weatherton winning the Duel 1. 4th place, Jenny West winning Total Madness. 3rd place, Johnny Bananas winning Free Agents. And 2nd place, Laurel Stucky winning Free Agents. And in 1st place, we have TurboCam Curian winning the Challenge War of the Worlds 1. Now, I'm gonna be real with you. Whoever won War of the Worlds 1 was probably going to end up in this spot. War of the Worlds 1 had 17 men and women on both sides with 11 eliminations and 2 purges per gender, along with purges in the final itself. They had the hardest final in Challenge history. In terms of competition, this might be the strongest cast in Challenge history. At the very least, it has a top-tier male cast and a top-tier female cast. You had to be able to navigate this game in pairs and as an individual. You had to account for the politics of a tribunal vote and the fact that you can get rogue called out into elimination the same way you did on the Duel. All the players in the top 5 for that season, Theo, Wes, Ninja, and Cara, put up spectacular seasons, and had they won, they'd be number 1 on this list. But they didn't. Turbo did, and let's talk about his epic game. For starters, let's look at how he did in the partner phase. He and Donnie made it into 3 out of 8 tribunals. The only teams that made it into more were Cara, Maria, and Theo, and Wes and Dee. Considering that this was Nany's first season in a long time and the fact that she did so well with Turbo, it adds to his resume and mystique. One of the few negative takeaways you could have about Turbo's game is that he did not play the game as politically as others, but he picked Nany for a reason, so that she could run his social and political game, and it worked out since they were never called out for elimination together. Before I jump into Turbo's game as a solo player, I'm going to mention again the strength of the male cast Turbo had to go against. You had 5 former male champions in Hunter, Wes, CT, Bananas, and Zach. You had former finalists in Polly, Kyle, and Leroy, and then 2 professional athletes on the rookie side in Theo and Ashley Kane. It was a stat cast he had to go against. Once the game became individual, Turbo's performance is unassailable. He won 3 out of 4 daily challenges. The only one he lost was on a female elimination day, meaning he was quite literally safe throughout the entire individual phase. He even won a challenge that sent him straight to the final. In the final, he actually has problems on day 1 and comes in 3rd place, down by 10 minutes to Wes, down by 20 minutes to Theo, and that's a massive gap. Turbo, if he was a normal competitor, would have been down on his luck. Instead, he gives it his all, climbs all the way back, and wins the hardest final in challenge history. To summarize, Turbo won one of the hardest seasons in challenge history as a rookie, and then you add in the fact that English isn't even his first language. It's a great win that deserves number 1 on this list, and I hope you enjoyed the list as a whole. If you can, subscribe to this channel. Comment on what you think the best individual win in challenge history is. Thank you.